Sweet Amazon Mother Justice. Sweet Justice quickly became a danger zone as the robots attacked anything that moved, and everything that didn't. Izuku and Diana punched one of the robots together in a combined strike, shattering it into pieces. Jessica used her ring to get as many of the people out of the restaurant, but was kinda hard since the robots were swinging sledgehammers and wrecking balls at her. Karen tried punching one of the robots with her tiny fists, but it did little to nothing against the demolition bot. "Uh-oh," said Karen before the robot began to chase after her. Kara blasted away at the robots at top speeds, wrecking many of the demolition bots with a little too much force. Zatanna for her part was using her magic all over the place, keeping the bots away from the people. But the cheering civilians kinda distracted her just enough for one of the bots to swat her away. Barbara tried to use some of her gadgets, but they backfired on her, sending her crashing into one of the tables. "Maybe keep the experimentals for later, Batgirl," said Jessica, creating a shield between Batgirl and some of the bots. "Yeah, not the best idea for a fight," said Batgirl, getting up, dazed from the hit. Izuku realized that they had to end this fight quickly, or the remaining people were going to suffer the consequences. He remembered how Gran Torino used any space to his advantage and began to jump and ricochet off the walls. Like a crazy bouncy ball, Izuku began to take down the bots or at least knock them in the right direction so that the girls could finish them off. "Damn, Greenie, you gotta leave some showing off to us. Making us look bad," said Kara, almost admitting that Izuku looked good doing his thing. "Focus on the fight, sisters." "We must end this," said Diana, noticing that the last of the civilians had left. With that being said, Izuku landed right next to her as the rest of the team gathered around them. The newly formed superhero team charged at the remaining robots. "Detroit! SS Smash!" Izuku yelled, using One for All to uppercut one of the robots, shattering it to pieces. Wonder Woman wrapped 3 robots together with her lasso and flung them out of the establishment. Kara's eyes turned red and fired her heat vision, slicing the demolition bots in half. Zatanna used her magic to turn the weapons of the demolition bots into balloons, making them float. Barbara and Karen threw their weapons, popping the balloons. The bots were then caught in Jessica's recycle bin constructs before being thrown out of the restaurant like the scrap they were. The team exited the restaurant feeling rather good about their first victory, even if it was against robots. However, just before Barbara could say "Team High Five," the restaurant collapsed behind them. Apparently they had forgotten to take property damage into account during their fight. So, mixed with the damage that the robots did, the bakery fell in on itself. Izuku's face lost all color as his jaw fell to the floor in shock. Even after all the effort and the defeat of the enemy, the robots still completed their mission. Barbara's eyes shattered at their failure. Karen almost passed out. Zatanna was in utter shock. Jessica bit her lower lip in shame, and Kara rubbed her neck with guilt. Wonder Woman, for her part, felt that she had failed in her mission with the destruction of the establishment. She felt so ashamed and unworthy. Nothing could possibly make this worse. "At least no one was hurt," said Barbara, trying to cheer them up. At that very moment, a small squadron of tall, muscular, fully armored women surrounded the team. The young heroes turned to the sight of a bunch of angry women. The women's armor shared similarities with the one Diana wore, but if anything they had more muscles and refined beauty by age. "You just had to say something, didn't you?" asked Kara, glaring at Barbara. "Diana!" a voice came from behind the group of female warriors. "Oh no," Diana said, fear evident in her voice. The warriors parted, revealing a muscular woman with long blonde hair, and had a matured beauty to her. She was cloaked in an animal fur, and wore a small crown atop her head. "You are in so much trouble, young lady," she said in a firm and commanding tone. Diana sighed as she turned to her friends and teammates. "Friends, this is my mother," she admitted sadly. "Dude, your mom looks like a final boss," Barbara squeaked out in fear, cowering before the tower of muscle twice her size. "Why is she here, and why is she so angry?" asked Karen, hiding behind Kara in fear. "I am Queen Hippolyta of the Amazons, and I've come here to take my runaway daughter back home," said Hippolyta with a stern tone, somewhat surprising the group with this revelation. "Wait, I thought it was your destiny or whatever to save the world of man," Kara asked, confused. "She has no such destiny. She disguised herself as a warrior, took part in the tournament of Athena and Aphrodite without my permission, and stole a boat to come here," Hippolyta explained, holding back the anger in her voice as best she could. "Diana, you snuck out?" Izuku asked, shocked by this news more than anyone. "And she won't be doing it again. She will be grounded for the rest of her immortal life." Hippolyta said finally, pinching Diana's ear and pulling her away, Diana going ow 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 the entire time. Izuku stepped forward, feeling that this wasn't right. Even though Barbara and Karen were signaling to get back with them. Wait, called Izuku, causing Hippolyta to stop and turn to face Izuku. What do you want, masked rabbit woman? Asked Hippolyta, still holding Diana by the ear. Izuku was slightly scared by the sight of the taller woman and her armed entourage. One wrong word and he could very well be in a world of hurt. But one look at Diana gave him the courage to hold his ground. He was all too familiar with people telling him what he could never be or do. First off, he began, taking off his mask, showing his face. I am a man. Secondly, Diana might have disguised herself to enter the tournament, but she passed those tasks. Didn't she? The revelation of his true gender shocked the Queen of the Amazons, but the question did bring out her curiosity. Yes, she did pass them. But she still entered the tournament against my wishes, Queen Hippolyta said sternly, hoping to make Izuku back down. But she still passed them, without any tricks or cheats. That means that she does have the right to be here, said Izuku, holding his ground, much to the cringe of the Amazon warriors. Yeah, she disobeyed you, but at the same time she has the right to make her own decisions, even if you disagree with them. She's too young to make such decisions. She's only 317 years old. Hippolyta said firmly, her voice faltering slightly at the logic behind this man's words. That's 300 years more than most teenagers have when they start to make their own decisions. I know that if she stays she'll make a difference, said Izuku, turning to Diana. She once said that I had what it takes to be a hero, but she has what I have and so much more. I may be able to save the day, but she can save the world someday. She's not just a girl or even a princess. She a Wonder Woman, he said with a big smile, bringing both a smile of her own to her face and tears to Diana's eyes. Behind him, Barbara, Karen, Zatanna and Jessica had tears in their eyes from Izuku's speech, though Kara kept up a strong face. That was beautiful, Barbara whispered, wiping away a tear. Diana, feeling empowered by the young man's words, steadied her footing before straightening her posture and looked up to her mother. Mother, he is right. I am more than old enough to make my own decisions, and I have more than proven myself worthy to be here. If you cannot accept that, then that is too bad, said Diana firmly, earning a gasp from her mother. Queen Hippolyta turned to Izuku with a snarl. Rage could be seen in her eyes as she tried to stare Izuku to death. You did this. I should have known a man would turn my daughter against her mother and her people, yelled Hippolyta, pointing an accusatory finger at the green-haired boy. Wait, we can talk about this, said Izuku, holding his hands up in defense. Your daughter is her own person and maybe that sometimes angers you, but you got to accept it. Mother, you can trust Izuku's judgment. He is a true hero and as such I respect his judgment, said Diana firmly to her mother. This caused the other Amazons to gasp as this hadn't happened before. Why should his word be held in such regard? He is merely a man, said Hippolyta, pointing at Izuku. Because he is the champion of Zeus. The defender of man against evil, said Diana, almost giving Izuku a heart attack out of embarrassment. Hippolyta looked at Izuku with great skepticism. She looked him over from head to toe. The other Amazons began doing the same until Diana and Kara got in front of them. Then Hippolyta and the other Amazons began to laugh abruptly. This of course threw everyone else for a moment before the Amazons began to calm down. Oh, by the gods, began Hippolyta while taking in breaths of air. I haven't laughed so much since you were a baby, running around the palace wearing my battle helmet. Do you really expect me to believe that this small man is the chosen champion of Zeus? Mother, if you could just let him show you, all your fear and skepticism will be cleared, said Diana to her mother, trying to give herself a fighting chance. Just then, the entire pier began to tremble and shake from some sort of activity. Everyone turned to see a massive robotic exoskeleton with the logo of LexCorp on its chest. The giant robot began destroying and attacking everything on the pier. That's a LexCorp demolition robot suit. Luthor uses them for massive demolitions, said Barbara as she stared at the giant robot. Which is exactly like the demolition bots that attacked Sweet Justice. Why would Lex Luthor do something like this? Isn't he a big-time billionaire or something? Asked Kara as she narrowed her eyes at the giant robot. Why do you waste your time in pointless babble, Diana? A true Amazon faces whatever danger is before her, said Hippolyta before her and her Amazon warriors charged against the robots in the giant mech suit. While the female warriors did fare against the smaller demolition bots, the mech easily knocked and swatted them away. From the shoulders of the mech suit, a pair of cannons emerged from a set of panels. From those cannons, several blasts of goo that encased the Amazon warriors, including Queen Hippolyta. "Mother! You foul coward, show your face if you are a real man!" challenged Diana before drawing her sword and shield. Izuku pulled on his mask and prepared for a fight, followed closely by the other girls preparing for battle. "Yeah, bring it on, Lex! Show us what you've got!" Kara yelled. "Ha! You think I'm Lex?" A high-pitched voice came over a speaker on the mech before a window on the chest became untinted so that they could see inside, only to see nothing in the cockpit. "Oh wait, hold on," the voice said before a chair raised to reveal a young blonde-haired girl who looked no older than 10. "As I was saying, ha! You think I'm Lex? No! I'm Lena Luthor," the girl said, sounding high and mighty. There was a silence over the battlefield before Kara asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "Who?" she asked. "Are you kidding me? I'm Lena Luthor, world's greatest and youngest criminal mind," Lena said, utterly offended that nobody knew who she was. "Oh yeah. Aren't you that little kid from the LexCorp commercials?" asked Izuku, trying to piece together the identity of their foe, as weird as it might be. "I am not some little kid. I am the mastermind behind this brilliant plan to get rid of all the stupid adults and teenagers of Metropolis," said Lena, as proud as if she was at the top of the world. What?" Kara asked, still as confused as everyone else was. "Oh, come on, do I have to spell it out for you?" Lena asked indignantly. "Yeah, you kinda have to," replied Batgirl. "I helped create one of the most addictive game systems for the L-visors, putting teenagers in a trance forever. But to make sure you dumb teens would buy the visors, I needed to destroy everything you find fun. The movies, those dumb arcades, restaurants, and this pier," Lena began explaining her evil plan. "Once you all have goo for brains, all kids will rule the city. MWA ha ha ha." This plan didn't have much of an impact for the young heroes, nor the seasoned Amazon warriors. "That's the dumbest plan I've ever heard," Kara deadpanned. "You're the dumbest plan I've ever heard." Lena shot back in anger at having her brilliant plan insulted by the teenage Kryptonian. "It's just that it doesn't make any sense. I mean, how would society work without people that know how to operate the city? You know, police, firefighters, doctors, people that cook food, among others," said Izuku, showing the flaws of the youngest Luthor's plan. "That's it!" Lena called out before charging at the young heroes with the giant mech. Lena pulled a lever as the giant mech suit's arms rose high into the air before slamming them down towards the heroes. The team scattered, avoiding the attack, but some of the debris were about to hit the captured Amazons. Hippolyta and her warriors braced for the worst, but it didn't come. The Amazon Queen's eyes opened, and what she saw was something that she didn't expect. Izuku had used his quirk to empower his body, and with green lightning crackling around his body, he kicked the rubble into pieces. The moment of shock didn't stop there for the Queen. Izuku turned around and back-kicked a demolition bot towards the mech suit. Lena swatted the bot away, but that gave Diana the opportunity to take out the shoulder cannons with her sword. Kara flew in at top speeds, punching the mech suit in the stomach, sending it to the floor. Zatanna and Jessica combined their powers to restrain the mech suit. The green light constructs and the purple magic ropes bound the arms and legs of the mech suit. The mech suit struggled against them, which caused some damage to the pier. "We need to finish this quickly," said Izuku, seeing that the pier wouldn't last against this kind of damage. "The best way to stop this thing is from within," Barbara said, pulling out a small tablet computer with a display of the schematics for the robot as Supergirl, Wonder Woman, and Bumblebee gathered around to hear the plan. "If we can find a way to short-circuit it, we can shut it down as well as minimize property compared to just hitting it like we did back at Sweet Justice." "But how?" Izuku asked. Kara looked around the pier and spotted an electric guitar and a wireless amp left by a street performer from earlier that evening. Flying over and grabbing it, she showed it to the others. "I have an amp like this back at my place. It blows our circuit every time, just crank it up to 10 and then boom," she said. "Perfect. I can rewire some of the parts so that it can go beyond 10 and really fry that thing's circuits." Batgirl said. "No way. If we make it through this, can you do that for mine?" Supergirl asked. "The only problem is how we're going to plug the amplifier in. It's housed inside the chest of the suit, and there's no opening big enough for us to get at it," Izuku pointed out. Actually, there are some small thermal exhaust ports along the underside of the torso large enough for me to get into, Bumblebee pointed out on the schematic. It's going to be dangerous. Can you handle this? Wonder Woman asked. Bumblebee looked worried for a moment but steeled herself. I don't want to, but I must if we want to save the pier and the teenagers of Metropolis, she said firmly. You're doing a brave thing, Bumblebee, Izuku said, placing a hand on her shoulder and smiling. All right, it is settled. Batgirl, you stay here and work on the device. Kara, you provide her with cover. Deku and I will distract this Lena Luthor with Jess and Zatanna, Wonder Woman said, all of them nodding in acknowledgement before breaking off to execute their orders. Izuku, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern and Zatanna charged at Lena just as she was getting up. Izuku used his greater speed to run around in circles. As Lena tried to catch Izuku, Jessica created a giant flower before the mech suit, blinding Lena. Lena swatted away the flower, but then she was met with magical fireworks by the courtesy of Zatanna. Wonder Woman took this chance and tackled the mech suit's leg, with just enough strength to get it off balance. Lena tried to attack Wonder Woman, but Izuku jumped in and punched the mech suit in the face. The tiny criminal girl screamed in rage and frustration as the teens continued to hit and dodge her, keeping her occupied and distracted from the real threat to her. Back with Batgirl, Kara and Karen, they had just finished making the modifications to the amplifier. Got it. They are ready to party, said Batgirl before giving them to Karen. Let's do this, said Karen before shrinking down along with the amplifiers. Kara grabbed a plastic straw and loaded up Karen inside it. She then took aim to one of the exhaust ports as the rest of the team kept Lena in place. Kara took in a deep breath before firing Karen directly into the exhaust port. No amount of expelling air was going to stop a Kryptonian-blown Bumblebee. Karen traveled through the exhaust port deep into the inner machinations of the mech suit. It was blazing hot inside the core of the robot, but Bumblebee endured as best she could. Soon enough she found herself in the main circuitry area of the mech suit. She flew down to the middle of the circuit board and plugged in the amplifier. Guys, the amplifier is in. Go for it, said Karen over her communicator. Back outside, Barbara and the rest of the team heard their friend, and she looked for the perfect song to knock the mech suit down. She then came across a song that she thought would do just the trick. Batgirl activated the music, and the amplifier began blaring it out at great volumes. Limit Break X Survivor Ost. The music began to cause the circuits to blow up and the mech suit to come apart at the seams. Bumblebee quickly flew out of the mech suit as fast as she could, but just before she exited out the way she came in, she was struck by a powerful bolt of electricity, shocking her to her core. Back in the pilot's seat, Lena was trying to regain control of her haywire mech but instead began throwing a tantrum as she realized she was defeated. No! You cheated! You cheated! You cheated! You cheated! She screamed like the spoiled brat she was before the mech stopped dead. Uh-oh, she said before bracing herself as the mech fell backwards like a lifeless metal husk, crashing to the ground and creating a small crater upon impact with the asphalt. The team of superheroes surrounded the mech suit as Bumblebee shot out of the exhaust port. Karen grew back to her normal size and began panting as the furnace-like heat almost gave her a heat stroke. Does anyone have a water by any chance? Asked Karen as she took off her helmet, revealing her now sweaty, glossy buns now had a yellow streak going through the left one. Zatanna materialized a water bottle before Karen, which she promptly gulped down. Izuku, Diana and Kara went to liberate Diana's mother and her warriors. The three heavy hitters punched the hardened paste. One by one, the Amazon warriors were freed from their prisons and got back to their feet. Mother, are you all right? Asked Diana, worried that her mother was injured. Do not worry, daughter. I am glad that you are all right, said Hippolyta, proud that her daughter had faced the enemy and vanquished the mechanical colossus. Taking a deep breath, she prepared for what she was going to say next. Diana, I was wrong about you. This day, you have shown the wisdom of Athena and the true spirit of an Amazon. This day, you've more than proven that you are worthy of the title Wonder Woman, she said, placing a proud hand upon her daughter's shoulder, and smiled a genuinely warm smile for the first time in as long as Diana could recall. Hippolyta then turned to Izuku and gave him a stern look. Champion of Zeus, you've proven your mettle, as such I will trust your judgment. Please look after my daughter, said Hippolyta with a calm smile. Yes, I will, said Izuku, slightly blushing under his mask. Amazons, we return home, said Hippolyta to her warriors. Right before she joined them, the queen pulled her daughter to the side to say something in private. Diana, I know that your knowledge of men is somewhat lacking, but I can see that you have feelings for the young champion, said Hippolyta into her daughter's ear, causing her to blush. Mother, gasped Diana, somewhat embarrassed. All I'm saying is that he could be a very good mate for you. A little scrawny, but just considerate, said Hippolyta, winking at her daughter who was now blushing like crazy, before leaving to the longboats. A short time after, the police had called Lena's parents and they took her away, most likely to be grounded for life. Lex Luthor himself decided to donate money and get his bots to completely repair any and all properties that Lena had destroyed, including Sweet Justice. However, with the arrival of police also came the arrival of the crowds of civilians, wanting to see the new heroes that had saved their fair city. Hearing the cheers and applause from their new fans, the new team couldn't but feel proud of their accomplishments. Man, I could get used to this, Supergirl said, waving to the cheering masses with a smile as the others joined in, drinking in their newfound recognition and adulation. Later on that same day, the girls and Izuku were hanging out at Zatanna's penthouse apartment, watching the news that was now running the story about them. And after a titanic tussle between these teenage heroes and the terrible pre-teen Lena Luthor, the city was saved. But the question remains, who are these teenage titans? The anchor woman reported before Kara decided to switch the channel over to find something more entertaining. It's hard to believe, you know, Karen asked with a smile. I know. First time out as a real team and we're already being shown on the news, Zatanna said, brushing her hair. Yeah, pretty catchy name they chose for us too, Teenage Titans. Teen Titans, Kara said, loving how the name just rolled off the tongue. I don't know. In a few years the name won't make sense since we'll be adults then, Jess pointed out. Whatever, who cares, we'll just remove the teen, and just call ourselves the Titans. Still a kick-ass name, Kara rationalized with a shrug. It was at this time that the new team, the Teen Titans, were born. A lot had happened in only a few days, but no one ever said that the road to being a hero would be a simple one. Izuku smiled at the fact that now he had a team to count on. Not just a team though. Friends. He might be far from home, but Izuku felt like he was right where he belonged. Excuse me, Izuku. May I speak with you privately? Asked Diana, placing her hand on his shoulder. Yeah, sure, said Izuku with a blush on his face. They walked out of the room to the one adjacent. Izuku, I would like to apologize for making you out to be Zeus's champion, but if I hadn't, then my mother would have just cast you aside, said Diana calmly. I thank you for standing up for me. I know you have your own quest, but I am really happy that you are here with us. You've got nothing to thank me for. I only did what I thought was right, said Izuku, holding back his face that was red as a tomato. Diana smiled at Izuku before she leaned down a bit and planted a kiss on his cheek, his face going scarlet. He could have sworn he felt steam coming out his ears, he was so hot. Diana blushed before she walked back to where the girls were. Izuku for his part was about to pass out, not realizing that this was only the beginning. Beware bunny sitting. It had only been a few days since the Teen Titans were formed, and the members of the team went back to their daily lives. Aside from the occasional crime bust, the team had patrolled the city and remained vigilant. Or at least as vigilant as their schedules allowed. After a late-night patrol scanning the city for signs of trouble, Kara had ended up crashing on her bed and sleeping like a log. Izuku for his part was able to sleep better since he got back earlier. It was around 10:30 in the morning when a knock came at the front door of the Danvers residence, stirring the blonde Kryptonian from her slumber. Kara! Izuku! One of your new friends is here, Mrs. Danvers called from downstairs. I can't come down. I'm in the shower, Izuku called from the hall bathroom. Kara begrudgingly got up from her messy bed and walked down the stairs to the front door. Kara opened the door, hoping it was someone that she could punch for waking her up. That sadly wasn't the case. In front of Kara was none other than Zatanna wearing her entertainer outfit, hat and all. Hi Kara. I can't thank you enough for agreeing to bunny sit my babies for the day, said Zatanna with a bright smile as she entered the house. Come I in? Kara said sarcastically before registering what Zatanna had said. Hold on, what? She asked hazily. Last night I sent you a text about how I need you to babysit these two cuties for the day, said Zatanna holding up two bunnies in separate cages in her hands. Don't you remember? You said it was all right, she said, handing Kara one of the cages and taking out her phone, opening he texts and showing the conversation between them. Her message being a really long one, and Kara's answer a simple whatev. The two girls made their way up to Kara and Izuku's room. The stage magician gasped at how messy the girls' side of the room was. Zatanna gave the cages to Kara as she then began to clean the room with magic. Now there are some rules that I need you to follow. Don't worry, they're just a couple, said Zatanna, waving her wand, picking up the papers on the floor. You must only feed them washed, peeled organic carrots twice a day. To wash them you've got to use water no warmer than 30 degrees. No roughhousing and no water from the tap. No loud sounds because that scares them. You are only going to be gone for the day, right? Asked Kara, a little overwhelmed from all the rules. Yes, sorry about that. One more thing. You must keep Sir Reginald Buttonsweet and Cottontail Cloudy separated at all times, said Zatanna, as serious as she could before giving a bright smile. Now, I sent Izuku a copy of the rules just in case. Gotta go, Mommy loves you, she said, giving the two bunnies a lovely smile and baby eyes. Sheesh, and here I thought that Izuku was too sweet for me. Don't you have some party to go to or something? Asked Kara, hoping to get the magician out of her room and house. That boy's a good influence on you. Bye-bye, I gotta go, said Zatanna before leaving the room and closing the door. Once Kara was sure that Zatanna wouldn't come back, her personality immediately took a 180. Oh my gosh. Aren't you the cutest little things I've ever seen in my life? She exclaimed, going gaga for the little Lapins. What were your dumb names again? Ah, who cares? You look like a Merlin, she said, pointing to the Snow-White bunny on her left. And you look like a hairy Houdini, she said, pointing to the one on her right. Opening Merlin's cage, she began snuggling up against the rabbit and laughing. Oh my gosh, I'm drowning in cuteness, she yelled happily. Oom, a voice said from behind her. Freezing in her place, she slowly turned around to find Izuku, now wearing a plain t-shirt and sweatpants, drying off his damp hair and looking at the scene before him. You saw nothing, Kara said slowly, narrowing her gaze at her roommate. I don't know what you mean. Heh, he said nervously, knowing fully well that his life was in danger. Good boy, she smirked before going back to petting the bunny still in her arms. So I take it Zatanna was the one at the door? Izuku surmised. Bingo green bean, Kara said before putting Merlin back in his cage and taking out Harry Houdini from their cage. Are you sure you should be playing with them like that? Asked Izuku before kneeling down next to Kara. What are you talking about? Asked Kara, narrowing her eyes while she nuzzled the bunny into her cheek. It's just that, aren't they like magic or something? Asked Izuku nervously, holding his hands up in fear of getting punched. I'm just saying that Zatanna has all these powers, so what if her pets also have magic or something like that? Haven't you seen the movie Gremlins? Kara scoffed and then began laughing at Izuku's face. She continued to laugh almost to the point of falling over the side. Kara continued laughing for what felt like an entire minute until she had to stop for air. Are you seriously comparing these fluffy wuffy cuties with one of those movie monsters? Look at this face. Does this face look like the face of something that could turn into a monster? Asked Kara, shoving Harry Houdini in his face. Afterwards, she put the bunny back into its cage before she wiped the laughing tears from her eyes. Kara then saw both of the bunnies reaching for one another while pouting with adorable eyes. This, of course, tugged at the blonde's heartstrings. All she wanted was to let the bunnies out and let them play with each other. Kara reached for the locks when Izuku caught her and stopped her from doing so. Remember the rules. They must stay separated, said Izuku, reminding the blonde about the instructions. Kara snarled at him while pulling her hand free. She tried again to unlock the cages, but Izuku once more slapped her hand away. Okay, you do that again and I will hurt you, said Kara. We can't break the rules that Zatanna put on them, said Izuku. Kara narrowed her eyes before she jumped at the cages. Izuku pulled her back, but to little avail as she was much stronger than him. Oh, you want to get physical? I'll show you physical, said Kara before tackling Izuku to the ground, and started the two rolled about the hardwood floor, each struggling to get the upper hand against one another. Izuku tried his best to fight back against the female Kryptonian, but due to her unique physiology, he struggled to find a good handhold to push back against her. Deciding to bite the bullet, Izuku shot his hand forward randomly in an attempt to gain said handhold. Unfortunately, that did not go the way he had hoped as Kara froze. The two slowly looked down to find that Izuku had accidentally grabbed Kara by her breast. Izuku looked like he was on the verge of a panic attack. But being a man, he couldn't help but admire how both soft and firm it was. Acting on instinct, Izuku clenched his hand and gave the blonde girl's bosom a firm grope. I'm sorry, said Izuku, almost like a squeak. Fear was creeping into Izuku's soul, and he knew that he was going to see his life pass before his eyes any minute now. Kara's eyes turned red before she charged at Izuku, reeling back for a punch and wanting nothing but to turn him into a bloody pulp. Izuku jumped off of her, trying to avoid every single punch that she threw at him. I hope that you enjoyed it, because it's the last thing you'll enjoy in your pitiful life, Greenie, yelled Kara, missing Izuku by centimeters as she punched the wall so hard that it shook the house, as well as the cages to Merlin and Harry Houdini, knocking the locks loose and opening the cages. Distracted by her unyielding rage toward the exchange student, neither Kara nor Izuku noticed the two bunnies leave their cages and make contact with one another, embrace each other in a strong hug. At that moment both teens looked at the bunnies hugging and a strange pink aura emanating off of them. Ha! See? Nothing bad happened. All they wanted was a hug. Now where were we? Kara asked before she lifted Izuku by the shirt collar, ready to punch his face off. Wait, Kara, said Izuku, getting a few more seconds of life. What? Asked Kara, not wanting to give Izuku too much breathing room. Weren't there only two bunnies? Asked Izuku, pointing to the bunnies. Looking to where he was pointing, she was surprised to find that the two bunnies were no longer alone, but were now joined by 5 little puffballs. Oh my gosh. Kara all but screamed, dropping Izuku and kneeling down to get a better look. Babies! Harry Houdini, you're a mommy, she said, overwhelmed by how adorable the sight was. However, right before the eyes of both teens, the 5 babies multiplied into 15. The eyes of the teens widened as they saw with their own eyes the phrase multiplying like rabbits happen in the most literal sense. The number of baby rabbits quickly began to increase and multiply into the hundreds and then thousands. Izuku got back to his senses and grabbed Kara by her wrist and ran out of the room just as the bunnies burst out like a tsunami of fluffy adorableness. They continued to run as the baby bunnies burst into the street and swiftly moved towards the largest collection of vegetables in the city. Both teens looked at each other before rushing after the tsunami of baby rabbits. Don't think this gets you off scot-free, Greenie, said Kara as she flew through the sky. Izuku could only gulp as he jumped from rooftop to rooftop. He knew that this was partly his fault, but the blonde didn't have to be so difficult with everything. The two teen heroes spotted the target of the baby bunnies, a stand of vegetables and fruit. The workers of the stand screamed at the tsunami of bunnies, but before the bunnies swallowed them, Izuku swooped in and got them off the street. The bunnies ate all the items of the stand, leaving a reeked vegetable cart covered with bite marks in its wake. We have to stop them before they eat everything in the city, said Izuku before jumping after the bunnies. Kara landed before the stampede of bunnies, and shot her hand forward with an open palm. Halt, bunnies, ordered Kara as if she was talking to a pack of dogs. The bunnies, as expected, simply flowed past her like a rock in a stream. Don't know why I thought that'd work, she said to no one in particular, blowing a loose strand of hair out of her face as she took to the air once more and caught up with her teammate. How are we supposed to stop them? Asked Izuku as he continued to chase after the bunnies. How should I know? These are Zatanna's crazy pets, Kara said in slight panic before a light bulb came on in her mind. Wait, that's it! Come on! We gotta find Zatanna and fast! She called to Izuku as she flew ahead of the ever-growing tide of rabbits. Where is she anyway? According to her email, she's in the park, performing at a kid's birthday party, Izuku called back, keeping pace with the flying female. The two teenagers headed to the park, which ironically was in the same path they were heading. In the park, Zatanna was performing tricks that wondered the children of the party. And with a wave of my hand, out from behind your ear is. Zatanna built up, reaching behind the birthday boy's ear, only to pull out a little baby puffball. That's not my quarter, that's a... the boy said in confusion before one of the guests yelled and pointed. Bunnies, they said as the veritable tidal wave of cuteness crashed down upon the small park. Getting above the waterline, as it were, Zatanna looked up to find Kara and Izuku awkwardly waving at her with sheepish grins. Kara floating in midair while Izuku held onto a lamppost. Hey Zatanna, they said, knowing fully well that she was going to be angry. I can't believe this. You let them out of their cages and let them come into contact with one another? I expected this from Kara, but not from you. Izuku, Zatanna exclaimed, using magic to levitate herself on a violet platform made of solid light. Okay, first off, I don't like how you automatically assumed I'd screw this up, Kara started. Second, neither of us screwed this up. This was all an accident. Right, Izuku. Well, for the most part, yes, Izuku said awkwardly, wondering if he should tell Zatanna that Kara did try to take the bunnies out of their cages so they could be together. It was an accident, Mostly my fault. Zatanna floated up to them with a scowl on her face. How could you let this happen? Asked Zatanna angrily at the two teens. How can we stop this? Asked Izuku as the level of bunnies continued to rise under them. Let me handle this, said Zatanna as she pulled out her wand. Hey, who are those two? Asked the birthday boy, from where he and his friends were sitting, which were the trees of the park. Oh, they are… Zatanna began, unsure of what to call her two friends. We are Deku and Supergirl, the magnificent Zatanna's lovely assistants, Izuku said, keeping the children entertained. The children began to cheer as Izuku began jumping from tree to tree, picking up the children and placing them down on the park games. The children cheered as Izuku then fired some finger flicks to the tsunami of bunnies. Delaware smash! Izuku called out, flicking his fingers, sending the waves of rabbits away from the children. The children cheered as Izuku continued to push back the waves of bunnies. Zatanna then got an idea to solve the situation. Now for my next trick, I shall make all these bunnies disappear, said Zatanna, floating high in the air along with Supergirl. As Izuku blasted the rabbits away, Zatanna held out her hat and swallowed them whole. Kara began to pick up as many of the bunnies as she could and threw them at the hat. Izuku grabbed hold of a lot of the bunnies and dunked them into the hat. In a matter of seconds, the three had emptied the park of any rabbits. The children cheered and clapped at their success. Phew, now that was something I didn't think I'd do today, said Kara. This isn't over, we have to find the parent rabbits before this happens all over again. Izuku added before the three heroes turned to see a large mountain of bunnies coming towards them. Oh no, said Zatanna before the wave of rabbits picked them away. The three heroes fought against the currents of fluffy cuteness as best as they could. They swam up to the surface for air, but it was a struggle just to keep afloat. Of course, being teenagers, they used whatever air they could gather to argue. Or better put, Zatanna used this chance to scream at Izuku for messing up. I can't believe that you broke the rules I specifically told you not to break, Zatanna yelled angrily at Izuku. I thought I could count on you, but I guess I was wrong. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention, said Izuku, feeling bad because of all the yelling and the bunnies crushing him. Kara listened into the conversation and wondered why he didn't just say that it was her fault. She was the one that wanted to get the bunnies out of their cages. But there he was, taking the heat from something that was an accident. Kara didn't like it. She was capable of standing up for herself. Hey Z, lay off him. I'm the one that wanted to get Merlin and Harry Houdini out of their cages, said Kara, getting in between Zatanna and Izuku. It was an accident. Now, instead of yelling at us, help us fix this. This, however, only brought about a different subject of argument for the young magician. Excuse you? My little Sir Reginald Buttonsweet and Cottontail Cloudy are purebred magical rabbits of the highest pedigree. They are not to be mentioned in the same breath as Merlin and Harry Houdini. She screamed in anger and frustration. Okay, fine, whatever. That's not what's important right now. We gotta think of some way to fix this stupid mess. Kara shot back. Zatanna began thinking about the situation. The bunnies were creatures of pure magic, and magic was the only way to solve this. This all started because of love, right? Zatanna asked, before changing from her entertainer suit into her superhero costume. Then I shall have to turn their love into hate. Ekat isit sienab evil DNA nert t otni dirta. She said as her eyes turned purple and wave of powerful purple magic engulfed all the baby bunnies. Zatanna and Kara believed that everything was going to be better. Izuku even let out a breath of relief. But their calmness didn't last long as the bunnies began to gather up and assemble. Their eyes were bright red and formed together as a large, monstrous bunny monster. The monstrous amalgamation of bunnies roared at the heroes, causing everyone to take a step back. I may have worded that spell wrong, said Zatanna, feeling some terror creep into her at the sight of the monster. I couldn't beat an army of those bunnies but a single giant one. I can take it D down, called out Supergirl before blasting off towards the massive bunny. Wait, Kara? I hate it when she does that, said Izuku before he jumped right after her. Izuku thought that the girl had more brains in her fist than in her head. If he saved her from being murdered, then at least he hoped that she didn't murder him. He jumped high towards the monster, trying to catch up with her. Kara tried to punch through the bunny monster, but the bunnies moved out of the way, creating an opening for Kara to pass through. Supergirl turned and tried again, but the bunnies morphed a hole again to avoid the punch. She tried over and over again, flying back and reeling up another punch, but the amalgamation of bunnies easily avoided the attacks. Why won't you let me hit you? Kara screamed in frustration before trying once more to punch the massive beast. The beast opened up once more, letting Kara pass before attacking her. Its massive hands moved towards Kara in an attempt to crush her. Kara gasped before she was caught by Izuku bridal style, saving her from being crushed. Kara looked up to Izuku, and she felt as though time slowed down. The speed of Izuku's jump had pulled back the mask, showing off his face. The image that Kara was now gazing upon was one of a brave man that was willing to help her, even if she did try to murder him. A blush appeared across her face just in time for them to land on the rooftop of a nearby building. "Are you alright, Kara?" asked Izuku, looking at Kara. Yeah, I'm cool. But, could you put me down? This is embarrassing," said Kara, avoiding letting Izuku see her blushing face. Izuku did as she told him, with a blush of his own. Zatanna quickly arrived at the rooftop, hoping to see her friends were all right. "Are you two all right?" Zatanna asked her friends. "Yeah, we're good," Kara replied, quickly getting to a different topic. "How do we stop this monster rabbit? The only way we can reverse this is to get Sir Reginald Buttonsweet and Cottontail Cloudy, Merlin and Harry Houdini," Kara interrupted. "Away from each other. If we do that, the rest should disappear," Zatanna finished. "But how? There's no telling where those two are in that thing. It's like finding needles in a haystack," Izuku asked. Kara stepped forward and began to scan the monster before pointing to its heart. They're right in its chest. And they look so cute together," she said, unable to get over their cuteness. "But how are we gonna get at them? We can't even hit that thing," Izuku asked. "I think I know what to do, but it is a long shot," said Zatanna as her eyes glowed purple. Izuku was surrounded by the purple aura, and in a puff of smoke his costume had been turned into that of a giant carrot. His eyes widened as the giant bunny monster looked at him like a savory treat. "I don't think I like this plan," Izuku replied as the amalgam bunny monster chomped down on the rooftop. "Izuku!" screamed Kara in complete terror. The bunny roared, but it cut itself short when it felt something going on within itself. It clutched its chest like it was having a heart attack when the girl suddenly heard a voice shout out, "Delaware! Smash!" Izuku screamed loudly as the rabbit monster's chest exploded outward like something out of a sci-fi horror movie. The girls breathed a sigh of relief as they saw Izuku, his carrot suit and some of his skin, full of bite marks, fly out of the monster's chest and tuck and roll onto the roof of an adjacent building. "Quickly, pull them apart," Zatanna yelled over to her friend. "No need to tell me twice," Izuku called back as he got a good grip on the two rabbits. Just as the bunny monster got ready to strike once more, Izuku pulled the two rabbits away from each other, breaking their embrace and causing the monster to explode into glittering dust. The people on the streets cheered for the defeat of the monstrous rabbit. The Teen Titans had saved the day once more, and Zatanna's performance went off without a hitch. Now all they had to do was go back home. Izuku, Kara, and Zatanna made it back to the Danvers home. Izuku placed the two magical rabbits in their respective cages. With a tired breath, Izuku sat down on his bed. Kara sat down next to him with a bunch of bandages. "Hold out your arm," said Kara before unwrapping the bandages. "Why?" Izuku asked tiredly. "You want to get rabies or something? We gotta dress those bites ya got from the little suckers," she replied, holding up his arm, which was indeed covered in dozens of tiny bite marks. "I know I can be impulsive and hit harder than I think, but if you're okay with it, I can cut you some slack." "Thanks, it's just that I've always been shy with girls and this is still new for me. And I'm sorry for what happened," said Izuku as Kara kept wrapping his arms with bandages. "Wait, what? You are shy with girls? You do realize that you're the only guy on this team, right?" asked Kara as she continued to laugh and take care of his injuries. "You two know that you're talking like a couple that's trying to make things better, right?" asked Zatanna with a smirk, making the two teenage heroes blush before Zatanna chuckled. "I'm kidding, dearies," she said, waving the joke off and making the two sigh in relief. "Well, I guess that I'll be on my way now, and don't worry, Izuku dear. I'll help you make a new suit. The kids just loved you today, assistant. Bye-bye." Once Zatanna left, Kara slugged Izuku with a light tap on the shoulder. "That's for you know what," said Kara, blushing a bright red. "Message received," Izuku said, rubbing where she hit him. Then, from seemingly out of nowhere, Kara then delivered a quick peck to Izuku's cheek, where he blushed and felt the tingling area where her lips touched his skin. "And that was for saving the day, hero," she said with a small smirk, her blush burning a tad brighter. Izuku looked at the Kryptonian a moment before smiling a bit. Maybe she wasn't as bad as he thought. "Tell anyone and I'll snap your neck," she threatened, to which Izuku blanched, his face paling in one of panic. "Duly noted," he squeaked, fearing what she could do. Giant girl problems. Izuku was currently with Zatanna in the workshop classroom fixing his costume as best as possible. After the bunny attack of the other day, she had decided to alter the design a bit. While keeping the base of the costume the same, she thought it'd be best to lose the bunny-like cowl. Reinforce the padding in his gloves, so that he won't risk injuring his hands, as well as add some light armor padding in the shoulders and armored legs, but he still had his iconic red shoes. "I must say that you look marvelous, Izuku. Even Superman would be envious of this new suit," Zatanna said as she looked over Izuku wearing his new suit. "Now for the mask. I wonder what we'll do about it. You can't be an adorable green bunny hero all the time." "I kinda like the mouthguard. Could we keep it?" Izuku inquired. If we could somehow shift it a little bit, and here we go," said Zatanna as she remade the mouthguard. Now it resembled a pair of headphones. Pressing a button on the right earpiece, it joined together to form the full mouthguard. Voila! It now has more style. You can now communicate with us, and hear in on the radio frequencies to get to areas of need on time. "This looks awesome. I feel like a real superhero," said Izuku before taking out his hero notebook. He began taking notes and redrawing his suit to better incorporate his new skills. "With this new suit, I'd be able to fight longer and minimize the injuries that I could sustain in battle. Now I can focus more on developing my quirk and getting stronger. If I may, I think you could use some muscle, but not more than Kara or Diana. Not all girls like muscle mountains," darling, said Zatanna, flaunting her eyelashes, causing Izuku to blush. "Hey, wasn't Karen supposed to join us or, something?" Izuku asked, hoping to feel less uncomfortable. Suddenly Karen came through the door to the class, looking more than a little down in the dumps. Hey Karen. What's going on?" Izuku asked. "I don't want to talk about it," Karen replied, setting down her bag, taking out her bumblebee armor and grabbing a soldering iron, working on the wiring. Zatanna was thinking for a moment before putting the pieces together. "Wait a moment. Was it those bullies again?" she guessed, getting Karen to set down her iron and letting out a huff in frustration. "It's that meathead Doris. She keeps picking on me just because I'm small," Karen said, annoyed. "But soon enough she's going to be eating her words," she said, getting back to work on the armor modifications. "Hold on, who's Doris?" Izuku asked, confused a bit about the situation. "It's this girl Doris. She's this big musclehead that torments me." "Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? It's frustrating," Karen yelled. "Why is it that she picks on me? What'd I ever do to her?" Izuku couldn't help but relate to Karen's rage at the bully. Ever since he was little he had to face this kind of treatment just because he didn't have a quirk. What he wouldn't have given to teach them all a lesson with one for all. But Izuku knew that All Might wouldn't approve of it, nor would the girls. "Karen, why don't you tell a teacher or someone to put her in her place?" asked Zatanna, suggesting a possible solution. "No. The PE teacher loves her, and that makes her think that she's untouchable." "I need to face her down," said Karen, looking over her new piece of armor. "Yeah, but facing her with your battle armor might be too much. You need to be better than her, don't go down to her level," said Izuku, making his own thoughts known. Karen let out a sigh, knowing that Izuku was most likely right with his words. It was kinda hard to not trust him in his words, since he always spoke in a way that gave him the authority of Wonder Woman. "Just not as intimidating as her. You might be right. But now we have to test these new improvements to my armor," said Karen before putting on the suit. The three teens met up with Diana, Kara, Barbara and Jessica at the Danvers residence to show them the new suits that they had just finished making. Diana and Kara were interested in seeing how Izuku's new suit would look like. They had gotten quite the liking to the green-haired hero in the recent days. "Now presenting, Deku the Hero, Titan Edition," declared Zatanna, presenting Izuku wearing his new hero suit. Izuku rubbed the back of his head as he still couldn't help blushing. Being the center of attention was something he wasn't used to. But the girls seemed to like his new suit, even with his shyness. "And here we have none other than the spunky Bumblebee," declared Zatanna, as Karen stepped out from behind a wall, now wearing her new sleeker armor. "Wow, you look great, Karen," Jess said with a smile. "It is armor befitting a true Amazon," Diana said proudly. "Looking good, kid," Kara smirked, giving a thumbs up. "What can you do now?" Izuku asked, genuinely curious to hear about the new suit upgrades. Well, as you can see, the armor has a much sleeker design, and isn't held together with tape. I installed stingers in my gauntlets to emit a small but powerful electric shock, and now I can't only turn small, but I can turn big as well, Karen explained as she showed off her new stingers. Now step back, I'm about to go from Bumblebee to Bumblebig, she called out, pressing the buttons on her wrist. She began to glow a soft gold as she began to grow a few inches, then a couple of feet, and then shrunk down to the size of an insect like she did originally. Oh, come on! I thought I fixed that! She yelled in frustration. Well, if it helps, darling, I think you look really cute like this, Zatanna said as Karen landed on her index finger. Yeah, but I don't want to be cute. I want to be big and intimidating like you guys, she complained, looking up at her teammates before jumping off and reverting back to her normal size. Don't worry, Bee. I'm sure it's just a crossed wire or misconnected thingamabob or something, Barbara said, walking up and placing a hand on her friend's shoulder in comfort. Yeah, maybe you're right, Karen replied, a small smile of hope growing on her face. If it's parts you need, we can head over to the mall and hit up the electronics store. No problem, Barbara suggested. Yeah, and I can come along. Help you find what you need, Izuku suggested with a smile. While he didn't notice it, Karen was lightly blushing at the sight of his warm smile. I will come too, Diana said, placing a hand on Karen's shoulder in support. While I hate to miss a trip to the mall, my dad and I have a show to do downtown, Zatanna said apologetically, pulling out a poster that showed her and her father doing magic. And I'm protesting the show due to its use of animals, Jess said. Oh good, we can take the same cab, Zatanna said as she and Jess left the room. What about you, Kara? Want to come along? Izuku asked. A moment of thought passed for the Kryptonian before she shrugged. Hey, got nothing better to do. Sure, I'll come, she said as she got up off the couch and the group left the house. The walk to the mall was a calm one, nothing out of the ordinary happened. Not that a day in Metropolis wasn't always with a crazy event, be it a bank heist or a supervillain attack. They arrived at the mall and Izuku was instantly taken aback by the sheer size of it. He hadn't gone to many malls back in Musutafa, but this one was massive. Come on, Greenie, you can gawk later. Time to buy some stuff, said Kara, getting Izuku out of his stupor. Yeah, where should I start looking? Asked Izuku. The electronics store is over here. We can start there, said Karen, leading the group into the store. Oh my gosh, the new Gotham-style cowls are in at Emo Emporium. Later, guys, Barbara said excitedly, running over to the clothing outlet. And while you guys are doing your nerd stuff, I'ma go get a hot dog and fries. Catch up with you guys later, Kara said, leaving the group to do their own thing. The store was full of different machines, ranging from old video game consoles to house phones. There was even a computer station at the back of the store. Izuku began looking around to see if something caught his eye while Karen bought whatever she was looking for. However, he was able to see that the not being able to turn big was messing with her. He knew about how being small was a problem, especially when the people around you were much bigger and had mutant-like superpowers. Hey, Karen, Izuku asked. Hey, what is it, Izuku? She asked after making her purchase and leaving the store, Izuku following close behind. Look, Karen, I know this whole wanting to be big thing is really important to you, okay? I know how you feel, Izuku said, stopping the shorter girl. Do you, Izuku? She asked, looking down at the ground in sadness. Do you know what it's like to be picked on just because you're smaller and weaker than others? To be called names and shoved into lockers just because you're a puny insect? She asked, tears forming in her eyes. More than anybody else on the team probably, he said, making the girl look at him confused. Back when I was younger and I didn't have powers, I was picked on by my classmates. There was this kid named Katsuki Bakugo. He and I grew up in the same city and attended the same schools, all the way from daycare. When we were really young, he discovered he had powers and he used them to threaten me and bully me. As crazy as it may seem, people praised him for having such a powerful ability. That led him to develop an air of superiority and a bit of a god complex. Every time he could, he would remind everyone that he was the greatest. All because of the circumstances of his birth. He even gave me my hero name as an insult. In Japanese, Deku means useless. When I got my power from All Might, I decided to change what that nickname meant. That is why I use it as my hero name. To prove that I'm worth something, Izuku said, his heart aching at the memories, but feeling a bit relieved to get it off his chest. Izuku, Karen whispered sadly, not knowing what to do after hearing that story. Suddenly they heard a scream and a loud crash as a large man was thrown through the glass window of the sports supply store, skidding across the tile and into the fountain in the center of the mall. Looking in the direction of the commotion, they saw a hulking figure emerge from the dust cloud that formed from the destruction inside the store. The figure was a massive ginger-haired woman that looked like she lived out in the jungle or something. She wore shredded clothes over her now gigantic breasts and around her hips. "Puny man! Now you face the wrath of Giganta!" The woman yelled in anger as the man she had thrown through the window scurried away in fear. Diana, hearing the noise from a shop, came out in her costume and joined her two teammates. "Izuku! Karen! What is happening?" she asked. "Looks like we'll have to face a criminal today after all," said Izuku, putting on his mouthguard and tearing away his shirt to reveal his costume underneath. "Time to test these suits out." Izuku joined Diana, now wearing his new hero suit. The two heavy hitters charged at the massive woman. Izuku moved from the left and Diana attacked from the right. Izuku jumped and kicked at Giganta's face. Giganta lifted her massive left arm, blocking it but leaving her open for Diana to punch her in the face, only to have her reel back in pain from the punch she delivered. "Great Hera! What are you made of?" Diana asked, nursing her hand. "Pure untamed muscle," Giganta claimed before swinging Izuku at Diana with ease, slamming the two into one another and sending them flying. Izuku moved in the air and was able to land on his feet. He dragged his heels and right palm to stop himself as Diana did the same, digging her boot heels into the tile floor to stop herself. "Fighting her head-on won't work, we need to fight smarter," Izuku suggested, as full cowling flared throughout his body. "Agreed," replied Diana, but then something occurred to her. "Where is Bumblebee? She needs to make the mods to her suit. If she can get it working, we might have a chance. In the meantime, all we can do is hope for the best," Izuku explained as Diana nodded in understanding. "Work fast, little Bumblebee," she thought as they prepared to fight. Giganta leaped at the two heroes, bringing down her left fist upon them. Both Izuku and Diana jumped to the sides, avoiding the attack. Izuku jumped off the wall towards Giganta. She smirked, thinking that Izuku would try to hit her again. She thrust her right arm at Izuku only for him to catch the attack and use it to jump above her. Diana took this chance and wrapped her lasso around Giganta's neck before running underneath her. She then pulled at her lasso, sending Giganta to the ground with a backwards flip. The giant woman did not take kindly to this and quickly got back up with a savage roar. Giganta charged at Diana, but she jumped out of the way. "Delaware smash!" called out Izuku, sending a blast of compressed air at Giganta. Giganta got hit square in the face, forcing her to close her eyes. Using the temporary advantage, both Izuku and Diana proceeded to attack the giant woman. Izuku went in with a double kick to her stomach. With 10% of his full power, it made a mark on the woman, sending her back a little. But Giganta wasn't out of the fight just yet. She swung her fists wildly, sending Izuku back to the ground. Diana went in for another punch to the face, which struck the taller woman before Giganta swung her right arm backwards, swatting away at Diana. "You puny heroes can't stop me. I am Giganta," she called like a female King Kong, beating her chest. "Hey, you overgrown gorilla," a voice called from behind Giganta. "Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" The large woman turned around and spotted Karen wearing her bumblebee armor. However, Giganta laughed wholeheartedly at the sight of the bug-themed superhero. "You really think that you can take me on, little bug?" asked Giganta, still laughing. "I am huge, and you're just a puny insect." "Not for long," Karen replied as she activated her armor's size functions. "Meet the new and improved Bumblebee." Karen pressed a button and her armor began shining bright. For a moment it seemed to be working. Actually working! However, that moment quickly ended, and instead of turning into a giant herself, Karen turned small like she usually did. "Oh, come on," said Karen to herself. This only caused Giganta to laugh even harder. "If you call that big, then I'm a cheerleader," said Giganta as she tried to crush Karen between her two hands. Giganta's smile didn't last, however. Karen had easily avoided the attack due to her size. Bumblebee smiled to herself before Giganta tried again and again to swat and crush the heroine, but to no avail. A smile appeared on Karen's face as she began to slide around Giganta like an annoying fly. As anyone could testify, small insects tend to be much faster and more agile than large-size humans. And if said insect happens to be a bug-themed superheroine, then the odds of hitting her were very slim, especially when up against a hulking brute like Giganta. "Why won't you stand still?" demanded Giganta, irritated by the effort that she had to put into crushing the little hero. "Be honest, does that ever work?" Karen asked, standing on top of Giganta's nose. A sinister smile crept on Giganta's face as she reeled a punch to hit the little bumblebee. Giganta released her punch, but Karen moved out of the way in the nick of time to see Giganta punch herself square in the face so hard that it threw her for a loop. "Hey Giganta, why are you hitting yourself?" Bumblebee said tauntingly with a smirk as the dazed giantess tried to keep her balance. To really drive it home, Bumblebee flicked Giganta in the forehead. This small amount of force was just enough to send her toppling over, crashing into the mall floor with enough force that she broke through the tile and wound up in the parking garage underneath the mall itself. "I did it? I did it!" Karen exclaimed, celebrating her victory against the giant woman. "Bumblebee, what happened?" asked Diana as she and Izuku met up with their teammate and friend. "I did it, guys. I beat Giganta," said Karen, returning to normal size before hugging in celebration. However, upon realizing what she was doing, she backed off, blushing in embarrassment, as was Izuku. This didn't last as Diana grabbed Karen and crushed her in a bear hug. "I am so proud of you," she said before setting her down. "Today, you showed the true spirit of an Amazon, little Bumblebee." Karen's heart couldn't help but swell with pride at the praise. Just then Kara and Barbara met up with the team. Barbara weighed down with shopping bags, while Kara was munching on a hot dog and soda, listening to her headphones. "Hey guys, what do we miss?" Kara asked before looking behind the trio to see the destruction left by the battle. "We missed a lot, didn't we?" Barbara asked, her face one of embarrassment at having missed the battle. "Yeah, you can say that," Izuku said with a small chuckle. The next day Karen was walking by the football field, texting her teammates about what to do after school when she suddenly heard someone shout, "Hey Beecher, heads up," the voice yelled. Karen turned just in time to see a football spiraling right at her. Acting on instinct, she put her hand up and actually managed to catch the oblong projectile. Looking down at the ball, her eyes widened in amazement at what she had just done. Looking up, she found none other than Doris and her friend, Leslie Willis, standing a few yards away. Their mouths agape at seeing their favorite target of humiliation actually catch the ball. Shaking off her shock, Doris's face grew angry. "Hey, give me back my ball," she demanded, looking down at the football in her hands and back up at her tormentor. Karen couldn't help but remember Izuku's story as well as her victory over Giganta the other day. Gaining some confidence in stealing herself, Karen replied, "How about you come and get it, meathead?" she taunted. However, Doris decided to take her up on the offer and began chasing after the smaller girl. While she may still have a long way to go before being as brave as her teammates, Karen knew that this was a huge first step on that path.